Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking into a stack of sources about the memory of September 11th. It's obviously a day etched into history, but, how we remember it, how we experience it now, even how we reinterpret it, well, that keeps changing.
Absolutely.
So let's go back to that morning, 9/11 itself, that ironic blue sky. It's something that comes up a lot. Many anniversaries, I know here in Chicago often, have had that same kind of warm, clear day. It's such a stark contrast to the horror, isn't it?
It really is. That detail stands out.
And personally, I remember, you're often completely unaware right before something huge happens. I was actually on the L train reading a review of Bob Dylan's new album, Love and Theft. It came out that exact day. Yeah, probably reading a line from Greg Kott's review, something like, "It's tough out there, high water everywhere," right when the first plane must have hit. You just have no idea.
That unawareness, that's such a shared thread.
Yeah.
Like the story of the Danish businessman stuck in the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel. He took a picture, completely unknowingly, of firefighter Gary Box running through. He didn't grasp the gravity yet. It's those moments where reality just fractures.
Yeah.
And for so many people, the first thought was, it looked like a movie.
Exactly. I remember that feeling. The news coverage, one source even called it almost pornographic, seeing those huge towers just disappear. It got called the Titanic of the 21st century. And yeah, that feeling that it was like watching a film that really stuck around.
And that points to something deep, I think, about how our perception is just so shaped by visual inputs, especially movies, photos.
Right.
Our brains, they store memories kind of randomly, but we often replay them linearly, like a film reel. So saying it was like a movie isn't just, a figure of speech. It reflects this human tendency to process intense reality through a sort of cinematic lens we already have.
Yeah.
Even remembering dreams can feel like that sometimes.
That makes sense. So if our brains are kind of primed for that cinematic view, how does memory get preserved or even changed as we move away from the event itself? Thinking about, say, the iconic photos.
Ah, yes.
Like from Steve McCurry or Joel Meyerowitz. We all recognize those images now, but the photographers themselves, they must carry such a deep traumatic memory from actually being there.
Definitely. Photography acts as a kind of confection for memory, as one source puts it. It makes the images emotional, almost tangible, really shaping how we feel about the event looking back.
A confection for memory, that's an interesting phrase.
Isn't it? And think about the internet. It was barely 2 years old then, really, in terms of widespread use. It completely changed how we store information collectively. Take the Box family, the firefighters family. They used the internet to find that one single image of their son, Gary. It shows how these mnemonic technologies, these memory...
Mnemonic technologies. Okay.
They extend our collective memory beyond just what individuals recall. It fundamentally changes how we record and access history.
So visuals are huge. But sound, too, plays a role, right? Music got tied to memory for so many people.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's fascinating now to see things like vaporwave emerging, that internet genre.
Yeah, that sort of slowed down, nostalgic ambient sound.
Right, kind of scoring places and memories, almost like Muzak in a mall, but applied to 9/11 footage or spaces. It's strange, but powerful.
And that leads directly to this phenomenon called the WTC Muzak community.
Right, I read about that.
Often younger people who weren't alive then, but they're sort of vicariously experiencing the trauma by adding this ambient music to found footage, often of these liminal empty spaces around the towers before the attack. This kind of residual background radiation, as one source calls it. But it raises a really important kind of ethical question, doesn't it?
Yeah, like, are we potentially triggering trauma for survivors, for the photographers, for anyone directly impacted by constantly digging up and recontextualizing these memories?
Exactly. It's a really complex area. The sources suggest there's an artistic impulse there, but it definitely highlights the challenges of transmitting memory responsibly.
And does that connect to this idea of generational amnesia?
I think it does, yeah. Many people in their 20s now, they just don't have a direct memory. No personal memory scars, A bit like how older generations might feel about Pearl Harbor or the Kennedy assassination.
Right, it's history, not lived experience.
Exactly. And that distance changes how they perceive it, how they remember it. Memories can get blunted, distorted, especially after 15, 20 years.
So for younger generations, 9/11 might even become, grist for memes. Using dark humor maybe as a way to cope or process something that feels distant.
It seems that way sometimes. And while some people... like the author of that piece, Forget September, initially felt this need to forget, maybe for closure, thinking music could be an anodyne, a pain reliever. revisiting and remembering is now seen as, well, hugely important for those who actually live through it. As they say, if you have the memory, you never forget.
Yeah. Okay, so beyond the personal and generational memory, 9/11 has also been filtered through some really powerful metaphors, often with significant political weight.
Oh, definitely.
Like that article, The Flight 93 Election, written by Michael Anton, who then worked in the Trump administration.
Right. He used the passengers on Flight 93 as a metaphor for voters in 2016, urging them quite starkly to charge the cockpit or you die. It's a very direct, very charged comparison.
It really is, and it contrasts so sharply with the messages right after 9/11, doesn't it? That sense of unity.
Absolutely. All the talk about Americans cried together, grieved together,
Right.
came together, we are stronger together.
Yeah.
And the irony, as the sources point out, is quite thick when you consider President Trump later spoke at the Flight 93 National Memorial, given Anton's framing.
There's also this idea that the new terrorism is actually internal, like viruses of the mind, fear, ego, suggesting a different kind of cockpit to charge.
An internal battle. But that concept of a shifting enemy, it also seemed to fuel a more divisive political landscape, didn't it?
Yeah.
Applying threat language internally.
Yeah, it feels like it did. Post 9/11 saw the rise of what one source calls toxic politics, where taking a hard stance felt almost required.
Right. Nuance got lost.
It created these walls in the head, fractured friendships too. The source used this really potent image, quote, "A plane crashes into a building and collapses lots of your friendships."
Wow. That's powerful.
Yeah.
A mental reflection of the physical destruction and the physical barriers that went up everywhere.
And we also need to touch on the international perspectives that emerge, adding another layer of complexity, like Vladimir Putin's op-ed in the New York Times back in 2013.
Yes, that was on the anniversary, 9/11/2013, addressing Americans directly about Syria.
What was the gist of his argument there?
Well, broadly, he was challenging the U.S. tendency towards military intervention without UN Security Council backing. He argued it could unleash a new wave of terrorism, destabilize things.
Okay.
He questioned if intervening militarily was really in America's long-term interest.
Right.
And he directly took issue with President Obama's idea of American exceptionalism, saying essentially, God created us equal.
Right. And just to be clear, our role here is just to convey these different viewpoints from the sources, not endorse them.
Exactly. It demonstrates how the very idea of terrorism keeps evolving and being interpreted differently around the world.
Okay, so we've talked about human memory, cultural memory, political memory. But what about memory in our current digital age, the algorithmic age?
Ah, yes. The algorithms.
It's been noted, for instance, that YouTube's algorithm doesn't always seem to prominently feature 9/11 commemorations each year, despite its huge historical significance. It makes you wonder, what is memory when it's filtered through algorithms?
What highlights a really key difference between algorithmic memory and, let's say, organic human memory. There's a great explanation in the book, How to Stay Smart in a Smart World. It says a deep neural network might learn to identify a zebra by looking for stripes, patterns, but it has no concept of a zebra as a real animal in the world.
Right, it doesn't understand zebra-ness.
Precisely. Human intelligence is about representing the world, building rich context and meaning. Algorithms lack that deep understanding. So the concern is that relying only on algorithms could deprioritize universal events like 9/11, not because they're unimportant, but because they might not fit an individual's immediate data profile or the machine's definition of relevance.
Which underlines why curated media, human curated memory, still feels so vital for passing on these shared significant events.
Exactly. Otherwise, history could become purely personalized, losing that shared universal aspect.
That lack of true understanding, as some might argue, algorithms could maybe enrich memory by surfacing diverse stories we wouldn't otherwise see. Do the sources touch on that potential upside?
The sources we looked at focus more on the potential downsides, the dilution, the lack of context. It's less about algorithms curating poorly and more about them potentially being disinterested in things outside narrow pattern. And this extends to AI, too. One source mentioned how, thinking about the 2024 anniversary, the idea of using AI to generate, say, a sympathy card or a song about 9/11 felt, well, blasphemous and heartless.
See, I can see that.
As they put it, AI will never have a heart. It may seem to have one, but humans will always be able to tell the difference. There's a line there between empathy and
It
simulation.
really is striking. We're constantly getting info from screens, which connects back to that film idea,
Yep.
influencing how we see reality. And while those direct on-the-ground accounts are so crucial, even our own human memories are a bit like degrading films, aren't they? We're always sort of storifying fragments, weaving narrative.